thank you all for coming along today. When I did the video for the Kickstarter for the graphic novel, I mentioned how my story was a snapshot, a unique snapshot of British history. And when I say British history, I was just mentioning a few minutes ago how, for instance, it deals with certain areas which have not been covered, or not covered in this way anyway. For instance, in the 80s, the arrival of crack cocaine, the arrival of ecstasy in the UK, how they impacted the streets. That was something which, again, has not been done in this particular way. Care, being in care before the legislation that the Labour Party brought in, for instance, DBSs, which we now have, where anybody wanted to work with children has to have a criminal check. This didn't happen when I was in care. Also, a very, very important area that the novel deals with is the white community. Now, I think it was last year, we had all of the marches and all of the kerfuffle, and I was really frustrated that the way that the UK had been presented as being this kind of really racist country and as if no progress had been made, it really frustrated me that the different voices that are out there in the black community were not being heard. So for instance, I was talking to Elaine earlier, and Elaine's from my generation. We're what you call the children of the Windrush generation. So there are three distinct black communities in the UK. There is the Windrush generation who came from the Caribbean to the UK. There is their children, we're their children. And then there's the African community that came late 80s, early 90s. Now, the problem has been, we've not been hearing really from the Windrush generation children. And one of the things that the book deals with, it really shows how much support I got from white people as I was growing up. It really does. Although that wasn't the intention of the book. I didn't write the book thinking, I'm going to show how nice white people are. That wasn't the plan. No, it wasn't. That wasn't the plan. I'm going to show what the streets were like before and after crack cocaine arrived. I'm going to show what it was like before ecstasy arrived. That wasn't the intention. The intention was simply to just chart my life from 1967 to 1991. That was it. But as a result of things transpiring in our society, then you start to think, well, actually, if you decided to read this and think every time a white character or a white person enters my life, I'm going to make a note about the way they treated Tobias, how they interacted with him. Were they compassionate, or did they show empathy? Were they racist? And what you will find throughout the story is literally 99.9% of the time, the case was, I got a lot of support and a lot of love. And I do think that this is one of the things that's been missing from the discussion about race, and it will come from this. So I hope that's one of the positive things that will come from this, whereby it will show how blacks and whites interacted from the 60s, during the time when there was, importantly, no legislation. You think the Macpherson Report, the Race Relations Act, all of these different laws that came into power over sort of 30 years. Before all of that, when it wasn't illegal to be racist, when it was actually the done thing to do, you'll see how decent and how good most white British people were. That was my experience. I want to thank, as I say, the Cartoon Museum, because you guys have done something really amazing by giving me this platform. I really am grateful. Tim from Soaring Penguin Press, again, for seeing the project and seeing in the project what I see in the project. That's so important. Most importantly, my colleague, my collaborator, what can I say about Anthony? Anthony, one of the things with Anthony we have in common is this: we were both born in 1967. Now, we had a meeting with Emma some weeks ago, and I mentioned how one of the illustrations showed me with a haircut that was worn by Stevie Wonder in a sort of a July album. Emma said, what Hotter Than July album? Like, she went on to like this. Anthony's over his head. You can see, I remember that. So there's certain things that we discussed. We could be discussing David Sylvian, we could be discussing Adam the Ants, we could be discussing Hotter Than July, and each time when I collaborate, it's fine. He understood, we were on the same page. Both of us born in 1967. Both of us have culturally so much in common. And again, him taking my story and adding such a strong layer to it. Because the book was written 10 years ago. But the illustration, how did we start doing with these?
In earnest, probably 2.5 years ago.
There you go. So, but it's added an important layer. Why? Because I believe it's so important to get my story across to the average British person in a platform, in a method, which if it wasn't for this method, perhaps it wouldn't be open to, I think, a great deal of our community. So that's the thing here, you know, if you've only got my story in book form, then it's only going to reach people who are into book form. But if you get it into a graphic novel form, I believe it's going to open up not only a whole new avenue of people, but I hope will be a domino that will lead to kind of many, many more people. What more is there to say? I think that's about it. That's all I've really got to say. Thanks for coming along. Please,